For anyone that's expecting a traditional Digimon game, more along the lines of Digimon World or Digimon Story, you might be sadly mistaken with this game, because Digimon Survive is 70% visual novel, 30% Digimon game, and while that does sound like I'm putting the game down by saying that, I think it really excels in what it's trying to do. Digimon Survive tries to tell the story of Digimon in a brand new, fresh and unique way, and in my opinion they've done an incredibly good job with it. Digimon Survive released back in July, and while I do think the criticisms towards this game, based on the fact that there is too much dialogue, are quite well founded, in my opinion it doesn't detract from the game too much, and Digimon Survive still delivers a really charming and authentic Digimon experience while trying something new and innovative. It's important to remember that Digimon Survive has not replaced the core Digimon experience. There is a Digimon Story game coming out in the future. This is just sort of a side game on Digimon's quest to its next main release. Think more Pokemon Mystery Dungeon to Pokemon Sword and Shield. So you've got the mainline Digimon games, which are Digimon Story at the moment, and you've got Digimon Survive, which is just sort of this experimental piece, trying to blend the visual novel style with Digimon itself to try and tell that story. And I think they've done an incredibly good job with it. The animations are really, really good. They kind of use a lot of trickery with a lot of the 2D backgrounds and stuff to make it seem like there's a lot more motion than there actually is. But in my opinion, it's done quite well. Whenever their characters are moving, and you kind of get the feeling of that, it's more of kind of a zoom-in effect, but it, accompanied with the sound design as well, really does give off the impression that they're trying to go for here. You play as Takuma, whose partner Digimon is Agumon. As you meet a load of friends along the way, you're meeting up with Kaito and his partner Dracmon, Miu and her partner Syakomon. You've got Aoi and her partner Labramon. You got Minoru and his partner Falcomon. You've got Shuji and his partner Lopmon. And you've got Ryo and his partner Kunemon. Digimon Survive kind of gives the spotlight to a lot of the older Digimon that have kind of got forgotten about. Not Agumon, it's kind of the Pikachu of the Digimon franchise, but you've got other older Digimon that kind of get a chance to shine a little bit more than they haven't had a chance to for years. For example, Kunemon, I haven't seen Kunemon's name in Digimon for many years, so I was very excited to see the Kunemon back, as it is a Digimon I've always loved the design of. And every single character has their own personality. Obviously, the partner Digimon kind of mirror their human partners' personalities, which has kind of always been the case in Digimon. Takuma being the brave leader, Agumon kind of simulating that a little bit, Miu being the fun-loving dreamer, and Syakomon kind of portraying that as well. There's a few characters as well that have an interesting sort of mix in different personalities. For example, Minoru being a more goofball kind of character, and Falcomon being more straight-laced and serious, leads to a lot of fun dialogue between those two characters. Shuji is kind of a bit pissed off a little bit, and Lopmon is this insecure child, essentially. And as we go through the story, we kind of learn, especially in New Game Plus, that Shuji's not too far off that himself. It's kind of a mask that Shuji has put on to try and portray himself as this confident leader. So we kind of learn that he's not too far off his own partner Digimon's personality as we might think at the beginning. The game is very dark. I definitely don't recommend children play this. I've not let my children play this at all. As well as having very dark themes. There's a lot of swearing in this game too. A lot more than you would expect. There's a lot of swearing in this. The game is honestly the darkest Digimon game I've ever played in my life. You've got things like characters dying, children dying. The name Digimon Survive isn't just a name. The characters can and will die. There is no way around. So there is no way to save every character in your first playthrough, and they die in some graphic ways. All I'm going to say, Chapter 5. That is probably the most graphic death I've ever seen in a game, in a Digimon game, in my entire life. Obviously, everyone wants to know what the battle system's like, because this is a Digimon game, and battling is kind of a big core component of it. The grid style system, I think, works incredibly well. It's more of a tactical RPG, which means that you need to think about where you're putting your pieces, or units as they're called in the game, to try and get the jump on your opponents, or to tactically push forward. If you are not thinking about where you're going with your units, then you could actually end up getting yourself one Digimon getting ganged up on and getting taken out by multiple opponents. You need to think about not only what your next move is going to be, but your opponent's next move is going to be. And it's not a perfect system. You'll find times where opponent Digimon have no way of fighting you and actually winning. So they'll tactically retreat over and over and over again. And if you're fighting a Digimon that's faster than your Digimon and can move more spaces, it can kind of drag on battles. But in all fairness, that only happened to me a couple of times. It's frustrating when it happens, but it's not something that happens every single time. Overall, I think the battle system works, and I think it works very well. I think that the animations within the battle are really good as well. The way the Digimon look, it's kind of still kind of keeps that anime style while they're actually in battle, and I really appreciated that. They kind of don't make it too jarring with a big difference between the cutscenes and battle animation style. They kind of keep the same style, which is definitely the way they should have gone with it. There's some interesting set pieces, one of my favourite being when Arukenimon has got her webs over the trees and trapping a cable car that's got the characters in, and just the whole visual of that I think is one of my favourite set pieces in the game overall. The story itself is a very interesting, intriguing story. You find out that you're being chased down by something called the Master. You don't know who the Master is, don't worry, I will not be giving any spoilers in this video. You don't know who the Master is, he's chasing you down, you don't have any idea why until later on in the game, and the kids in the game basically learn they can't trust anyone. While in the digital world, they also meet the Professor, and Miyuki and Haru, who all have secrets of their own. Every single one of them is hiding a secret, either dark or not so dark, and I'm not going to go into spoiler territory here for that. But all three of them are interesting characters. They're very well written. Every single character in this game is well written. There's not a single character that's not likable. Even the ones that appear not likable on your first playthrough will redeem themselves in New Game Plus as long as you take the truthful route. Again, it's hard to explain what I mean by that without going into spoilers. Just take it for what I'm saying. Just take it for what it's worth. There's at least two characters that are completely trash in your first playthrough, but then when you go through New Game Plus with all the extra content that's added in there, then yeah, they kind of redeem themselves in a big way. You learn more about these characters, and you kind of have a lot more sympathy for them. Digimon Survive is told through 4 different routes that you can take yourself. You've got the moral route, the harmony route, the wrathful route, and then in New Game Plus you've got the truthful route. And 3 of these paths affect the way Agumon digivolves throughout the story. If you take the harmony route, he'll digivolve into data type Digimon. If you take the wrathful route, he'll digivolve into virus type Digimon. And if you take the harmony route, he'll digivolve into vaccine type Digimon. When doing the truthful route, my Agumon did digivolve into the vaccine type Digimon, and I don't know whether that's because my moral stats were higher than every other, or whether he just turns into the vaccine types in every playthrough of truthful. So I'm not entirely sure about that. But all 4 of them deliver a completely different story, especially past chapter 5. They all go off in completely different directions, and so it's worth replaying the game at least 4 times over. You know, I find it quite tedious when games make you play them over and over and over again to complete them 100%. But Digimon Survive kind of makes it worth it. They make it so that playing through the game over and over again, you've always got something new to take away from it. And whether that's even as far as a final boss, every single final boss is different depending on which route you've taken. So I think that that's kind of a level of detail that they didn't need to put in. They could have got away with not putting that much detail in, but it's just something that just goes to show how much effort has been put into this game and how much it really appreciates the praise it's getting. Every single character have their own arc going on, something that's happened to them before the story of the game takes place, and something you learn about them as the game goes on through dialogue options. And every single one of them has an interesting backstory and a reason for why they are the way they are. Whether the character's a bit of an asshole, whether the character is way too happy and positive, as another personality trait, whether one of them is way too serious, whether one of them is too much of a goofball, whether one of them is too overprotective of another character. You know, they've all got reasons for it, and if you pay attention to what each of the characters are saying, then you'll get the full picture. And again, it's another thing where you've got to play through the game 4 times over to get that bigger picture, because different parts of different characters' backstories are unlocked, depending on which route you're going down. Because the stories are so different, each route will focus on a different character as the story goes along. One of the downsides to this game that I did not appreciate though is the randomness of a lot of the interactions, whether it's raising your affinity with different characters or trying to capture wild Digimon. There's a lot of randomness to it. It's not a case of look at the options being given and try and work out which one makes the most sense for that character. It really is random. I had to use a guide in order to catch wild Digimon or raise my affinity with different characters, because the answers that I thought would have actually done the desired results weren't actually the ones that did it. So I had to use a guide, and certain aspects of the game are tied to affinity, and you'll find the game a lot easier if your affinity with the other characters is higher. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. If you have a high enough affinity, your friends will get their ultimate and mega level Digimon. Their champions are tied into the story, so it's not something you need to worry about too much there. But their ultimates and megas are tied into how much affinity you have with them. And you've only got so many chances to raise your affinity with them. Granted, it's quite a lot throughout the story, but given how high you have to raise affinity and how much affinity is given for each interaction, you kind of need to nail it each and every time. So there's not really a lot of room for missing those opportunities. And again, like I said, if you choose the wrong option, you kind of shit out of luck. And if you get to the end of the game without having unlocked everyone's megas, that's kind of on you. Your affinity does not carry over into New Game Plus, and it doesn't carry on through to other playthroughs of different routes. Affinity is reset to 0 each and every time. So, you know, there'll be times as well where you've chosen every single right option when you're talking to a wild Digimon, and they'll still refuse to join you because it will be such a low chance of success. Which obviously is harder to try and get ultimate or mega level Digimon. But even still, you know, getting all the right answers, even through all this guessing game, and working it out through trial and error without the guides, yeah, it's almost impossible to get every single Digimon without a guide, by the way. But yeah, sometimes you'll get every answer right and they still will refuse to join you, which is absolutely frustrating, considering the fact that it's not something you can control. Not really. I mean, if you raise your wrathfulness, it'll make it so that virus type Digimon are easier to catch. But then if you're trying to go through a moral playthrough, that can also screw over your playthrough a little bit. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, and I don't like how hard it is to try and catch these Digimon. And I also don't like how random a lot of the correct answers are with it. If you play New Game Plus, the game's way too easy, because all your Digimon will retain their level from the previous playthrough, but all the boss Digimon that you're fighting will not. So you'll go into the start of the story with a level 70 Agumon to take on the first boss, which will be a level 1 Dokugumon. And then you've got a level 3 Arukenimon as the second boss. And I'm sitting there wondering why the bosses don't scale their levels. And it's just something that irritated me a little bit about New Game Plus, considering the fact that New Game Plus is kind of essential to 100% the game. It would have been nice if my Digimon went back down to level 1, or if the boss Digimon scaled up to level 70. Or at the very least level 50, to try and sort of keep, if you managed to beat the game earlier at a lower level, to at least compensate for that. But yeah, if you're playing New Game Plus, you'll just absolutely walk through the whole thing. Overall, I thought Digimon Survive was an interesting take on the Digimon story and the Digimon franchise. Unfortunately, I've got the 100% completion rate, and I've also got the platinum trophy, and there's really not much else to do. I really would have appreciated some sort of multiplayer aspect to the game, even if it was just something small where you could challenge friends or random people online to battles, or just something to do in the post game, some sort of battle area just focused on battling. But there's nothing. You can't even go back into your completed save to chapter select if you've missed a Digimon that only spawns in, say, chapter 4 and you're on chapter 7, and you realise afterwards, oh crap, I should have got that in chapter 4, you're going to have to wait until you go back around again if you're going to play on New Game Plus, because there's no way of chapter selecting. And I think from New Game Plus, you definitely should be able to chapter select. And once you complete the game, you should definitely be able to play through a chapter again, just in case you missed anything. But there's nothing like that. You can't do anything like that, and it kind of destroys the replayability of the game a little bit. While they do give you so much to do, I sunk hundreds of hours into this game just getting through my main 4 playthroughs. Like, each playthrough was about 50 hours each, so there's a lot of content there per playthrough, and there's 4 playthroughs to go through if you want to 100% the game. At the same time, there's not really much to do once you've actually done that. So overall, Digimon Survive I thought was a really fun experience. It's one of my favourite games that's released this year, and while I don't really do numbered grades on this channel because of the fact that I think they're a little bit too arbitrary, overall I think that it's a above average game. I think that if you're a Digimon fan and you don't mind a lot of reading, then this is definitely a game you should consider picking up if you haven't already. If you are a visual novels fan, this is definitely something you should pick up as well. Overall, I think Digimon Survive was a really fun entry into the Digimon series. Just something to tide us over until the next Digimon story game comes out. And yeah, I would say that this game was well above average. I would say that it was a really charming experience, and one that I'm very glad I decided to put money down on and try for myself. So those have been my thoughts on Digimon Survive. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know what you thought of the game if you did play it, or if you haven't played it yet, what you're looking forward to playing the most about it. I've been James the Thunder. Don't forget to like this video and share it on social media. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.